Hey, what is going on, everybody? Bauer Browner. Welcome back to the channel, guys, and welcome to another video. Well, happy belated holidays to everybody. I hope everybody had a good turkey day. Thanksgiving went okay, didn't eat too much. It is the day after Thanksgiving right now, so I'm a little bit late to the party, kind of sidetracked with the holidays, which is okay. I had a wonderful time. But anyhow, we're going to get into patch 1.3, which I'm sure all of you guys by now know that the patch has been released. And with that release, we also got the release of the new Giants editor, the 10.0.3. And with that release, we also have the ability to make maps. For the new mod from game now works with maps, right? So we can make our own maps and, the easy way, anyhow. So we're good to go on that front. All right. Now, if you're interested in what was involved with the patch to 1.3, we can go to their website, to thefarmingsimulator.com. You can go to their blog section, and there is an article for the download patch 1.3. Now, I'm going to skip a lot of this because it's extensive. There's a lot going on here. If you go through, it'll show you all the improvements and changes. Keep scrolling down a list, and it goes, I guess this is like globally their changes, and then they break it down by map, which map got which changes. They list all of the new additions. And lastly, and most importantly, we have all of the modding changes. This is what affects most of us guys that are watching this video. Well, everything affects us because we play the game, but this is what we're here for. All right, so with this, I'll quickly go over it. And a lot of it I haven't even really noticed was an issue in the past, but they did add custom shop offset support per config. Again, not quite sure. Like I said, I haven't noticed anything with this. Added income per hour configuration for simple placeable. Added log feedback for incorrectly registered dependencies. Added seed treater vehicle specialization. Added various checks to avoid runtime errors and display a log message instead. Fixed modded placeable vehicles crashing the game. Fixed referencing custom wheel XMLs. Improved documentation for engine script binding. Fixed new mod from game feature in Giants editor for maps. Okay, that's the one that really affects us. And added Lua game sources used by Giant Studio to Giants in Microsoft Store version. All right, so overall, the new mod from game is what really affects us. A lot of that other stuff there, besides the simple placeable, seems like most of it revolves around vehicles. Some of it I'm kind of unsure, but that's my life story. Just unsure about a lot of things. Alrighty, so outside of that, we got that covered, right? So the 1.3, I'm sure we all know is available. You've all dove in head first, and you're neck deep in your projects by now, I'm quite sure. I am looking at here, and we're just going to cover some basic things, a little bit of a kind of bring you up to date on where I'm at and where I plan to go. What I'm looking at here is just kind of I'm goofing around. This is my Palmer map. This is my newest map, but I threw it into FS25 mostly to see how a conversion's going to go. All right. And I'm kind of on the fence still. I'm not sure what I want to do about that map. After playing around with FS25 and getting into the maps, I really think that this map could look gorgeous inside of 25, given what we have to work with. All right. But still undecided on exactly what I want to do with this. All right. So some questions that have been posed to me recently, and I'm going to cover these very vaguely. I'm not going to get in depth with it. Maybe sometime down the road, we will cover a lot of these things more in depth. One is the roads, right? I've had a lot of guys asking me how the roads work, how the decals work, and stuff like that. And I'm going to show you, and it's super simple. It couldn't be any easier. These guys, I personally think it's the heaven's end. This is great. I love the way the decals work. It makes such a huge difference. All right, so I'm going to use one of my roads down here as an example. All right, and these roads I imported from my FS22 map. So it was, as simple as exporting the ID3D from there and just dumping it into this map, right? Not a big deal. All right. So with the way the roads work now, the way you create your road doesn't change, right? So whether you are creating your roads within Blender, if you're using Spline Street Constructor, or if you have a prefab package that you downloaded from somewhere else, right? These will all work just fine, no issues, right? So I'm not going to get into that part of this of how you want to create your roads. That's for a later tutorial somewhere down the road. Like I said, however you want to create them, this will work. All right. So, like I said, with the roads that we're looking at here, this is what came from my other map, right? From the 22 version of this map. Now, you can see that this is just a solid object here, right? So I can kind of, well, I can't find it. There it is. So I can move this around just like I would like any other road. All right. So what you want to do is when you get your roads in here, okay, and this is very, very nice the way this works out. Get your road in here and you want to go over to your shape tab for that object, right? So go over to shape and super simple. What you want to do is you want to deselect rendered in viewports and you want to select terrain decal. Okay, so you can see my road showed back up. Now, the difference with this is, and you're probably thinking, okay, so what's the big deal? All right, what's nice is this is just a projection. All right. So it's projecting this roadway onto the surface. All right. And what makes this different and what makes this nice is I could take a road. I should have used a different road. I have another road as an example. I use the road that has a big giant hill in it, right? But when I project it into the map, it lays it down flat. All right. And why is that important? And why does that make a difference? Well, what you do is you project your road down and you don't have to worry about inclines, declines. Now, your curves, you're still going to have to work into your roadways, but you really don't need to worry about inclines or declines. And I'll tell you why. All right. So now that this is projected, right? So, say like in this area here, let's say we want to create some kind of hill there, right? We're going to make some kind of changes to the land surface, right? So we're gonna create a hill and we're gonna make a, I don't know, we're gonna do something different with that, right? So, whoa, I got awfully big. Let me let me get this down here. I got, the thing is huge. All right, so we want to make some changes there. Now you can see what's happening here. Let me go up to a different one. It's a little, go up to medium. All right, all right. So you can see what's happening here, right? Whoa, that's a little excessive. All right. So here, if we want to make some elevation changes, our road literally goes with it, right? Because it's projected onto the ground surface, right? So how nice is that, right? So if you have a hill, you can just kind of whoop up and over that hill like so, right? You don't have to worry about trying to sculpt this in, or not sculpt it in, but trying to create these curves inside of Blender or trying to get it just right inside of Spline Street Constructor or anything like that. You could literally take a flat map, lay out your road network the way that you want it to, create your roads flat, and then just wham, just project them over your map once you have your elevation model in there, right? And you have your DEM figured out and your elevations are all set, then you can just project your road network over top of that and you are good to go, right? So you don't have to worry about inclines, declines, none of that stuff. And that can be tricky. A lot of times it can be very, very tricky. All right. So now why is this important or why is this such a big change? Like who really cares about this? It's not that big of a difference. And it really, really is. I mean, one, not having the solid object, it's just huge in itself, right? So you don't have to worry about, this thing floating here and there, trying to get your ground surface to mate up with it because it's already perfect, right? So there's no like looking underneath the roadway or anything that doesn't mate up correctly, right? Like one sticking up higher than the other. Any of the common issues that you would normally have with working with like a solid road. All right, so this comes in very nice for that. So let me see if I can find some spots where this mates up, right? Which we have here. We can see, maybe a little bit of a divot here where these mate up. It's really nice getting things to. I don't know how I want to put this, but to get them to mate up, basically. So what you want to do is, well, not what you want to do, but like say if you're working with, the advantage of this is like when you're working with like your texture files and foliages and stuff like that, it's a lot easier and it's a lot nicer to get these to kind of blend in well with your roadway, right? When you're projecting this instead of just kind of laying it down over top of your terrain. All right. So now, like I was saying, with your intersections and stuff like that, getting these things to mate up is really, really easy. And it takes a lot of the I don't want to say takes a lot of guesswork out of it. It just takes a lot of the headache out of it, basically. Right. So, like I said, it's just as simple as going into unchecking render and viewports, checking terrain decal, and we're good with that one. All right. Now you can see what's going on here, how these two kind of like, don't look quite right. And these are the problems that you run into when you have a roadway on that's a 3D, right? That's not, well, it's a 3D object, it's a regular mesh, it's a solid mesh. All right, so again, just go uncheck render and viewports, check terrain decal, and you can see how nicely that blends, right? It's seamless. It's so, so nice. Now, with that being said, this is not completely without its issues. All right. So let's take over here. Now I just have to redo this roadway, but you can see what's going on here is just milted around that corner, right? And same thing if I take this here and I turn this into let's go into shape here and we will terrain decal, rendered in viewports, and you can see what happens there. Just kind of blah down the side of that down the side of that hill there. Whereas before, it kind of just sort of hung out on top and it wasn't that big a deal, right? I can hide stuff underneath it. All right. So you run into things like that, and that's not a huge deal, right? So that's easily fixed, right? Just by fixing the ground surface around it. I think this is the type of thing that you're going to have a little bit of forethought going into it, right? So this is more of a problem that I'm running into with a conversion, right? If I was making this map from scratch, I would know to expect certain problems like this and I would avoid them, right, as they came up. Now, another thing that I found with the conversion is this road here. Now, this is one of those roads that have like how do I want to explain this? It has those edges on it, right? So on each of the I can't think of the right word, but instead of being a completely flat road, on each of the edges, it dips down a little bit, right? So on each side, it kind of buries itself into the ground, just kind of makes it easier for you to align the terrain up to get everything to line up really nice with the road. All right. So when you take a road like this and you turn that into a decal, which we'll do right now, right? So we're gonna switch that over to a decal. All right, so now you can see what happened is since it's projected, right, where you had those tapered edges to begin with, now it flattened them out. All right, so now my road is much wider than what it used to be because those edges were buried in the ground, right? So I can kind of just sort of I don't know how I want to say it, but I can just kind of snug it up to the terrain because it's buried, right? So I can make it look the way I want it to. But now that it's flat, the road is much wider in that area. So that really only a problem that I would run into with a conversion, right? So, like I said, if I was doing this map from scratch and starting it from nothing, I would know that this is going to be a problem when I'm going to convert it over to a decal, right? And then I could avoid that. I can make whatever adjustments I need to accordingly to not have that problem. All right, and the conversion, the other problem you'll run into, or that I saw that I would run into is this fancy schmancy bridge that I have here. Again, if we take this roadway and we take rendered in viewports, we turn it into a decal, and you can see the problem that I have right off the bat. My road now goes underneath, and it not so bueno. All right, so like I said, again, these are problems that I would know are coming my way, and I could adjust accordingly to avoid these issues on a new map. Now with a conversion, all right, so you're going to probably have some roads that you're going to have to redo here and there, or just kind of up to you how you want to handle these types of problems. All right. And I was hoping for me for a conversion anyhow that literally all I had to do is just dump my road system into this map. It's all in place. Everything would work fine. Just, some tweaks here and there and I would be good to go. And for the most part, I'm not wrong. It sort of does work that way. But in the end, there's still going to be some things that need to be taken care of as far as conversions go. All right, so you can see here. Here's one of the issues that I run into with a roadway with surfaces being uneven. Now, with things being uneven, I think something with this map since this is a 4 kilometer map, this is obviously not a 2 kilometer. The changes that I made with this, now I was working off of 2 units per pixel, and I swapped over to one just to see if I can get a little bit more detail out of it, just to see, kind of make things a little bit easier to work with. That's the direction they went in with the base game. It used to be 2 units per pixel, and now they're going with 1 unit per pixel. And I would imagine that has just a lot to do with detail, getting a better quality look out of it, right? At least that's my opinion. I could be dead wrong on that one. Now, I think with me changing this around, since you're directly affecting the DEM, I had some height issues, right? So you can see these stairs are sitting kind of high because there used to be more of a hill there, which there is not anymore. And then this roadway, obviously, you can see something's not looking so great there. I've got some decisions to make on this. This is my conversion map. Not quite sure what I want to do about this. All right, so that is the detail or the decals, right? So super easy. Again, like I said, however you choose to make your roads, that's completely up to you at this point. If you want to make them inside a Blender and import them into your map project, that's one way to go about it. Spline Street Constructor will still work just fine. The roads that you're looking at now were created inside of Spline Street Constructor. And then, of course, any of your roadway prefab packs that you download from the internet would also work. Not a problem, right? And like I said, the nice thing with that is you can use all straight pieces. Now, I know at one point or another, all of us had run into that issue where you're taking like a sloping piece of road from a prefab pack, maybe something like a 45-degree angle, and you're trying to mate that up with either another 45 or maybe a different angle, and it's just a pain. Oh my God, is that so horrible? Well, now what you could do is you can take just the straight pieces of that roadway. You can take one long straight piece and just keep laying that down right up over the hill. No problem, right? Yeah, like I said, play around with it. You guys are going to love this. It just makes laying roadways so simple, man. It makes it, and not that it makes it simple. You still need to create the roadway, so there is some work that needs to be done there. Absolutely, you're going to have to put in legwork either way. This isn't, just some sort of a magical, some magical way to create roads where just a couple of clicks of a button and poof, you have, this roadway going on here. But it does make things a lot easier to work with, right? So, like, try this one more time. Render to viewports, change over to decal, and then boom, right? So, like I said, getting things to mate up is super easy. And from here, I mean, to get things to look nice again, now you're just using your terrain sculpting, right? You want to smooth things out, you want to elevate things, it just kind of smooth that out there. And that makes things super nice, right? Really easy to work on your roads to get things the way that you want them, right? If you want to create potholes in your road, you can do that very easily now, right? No problem. This is just the absolute easiest way to get your roadway, to mate up with your land surface in the best possible way, right? At least from what I've been finding, this is just to me is a game changer. This is, oh my God, so nice. It's just helping in so many areas. All right, so do yourself a favor, play around with the decal feature. Now it's not just for roads. Keep that in mind. It works outstandingly well for what its name for what the name implies, decals, right? So if you have any kind of like road cracks or muddy tire prints or anything else that's like a decal, maybe it has like an alpha component to it, it works perfect for that. Now I can't tell you how many times that I've dorked around trying to get decals to lay just right. It's either laying a little too high or a little too low, or maybe the ground surface is uneven and you can see the edges of the decal and just a pain in the butt sometimes to work with. Well, this takes all of that out of the picture, right? Makes it super, super easy to work with decals, right? So I did some of these sidewalks. I played around here and I got those to lay flat, using the decal feature. This little brick walkway there is laid the same way, right? So there is lots and lots of different ways that you can use this decal feature. Play around with it, get used to it. Like I said, you're not going to be sorry. All right. So the other thing that we have going on that I was asked about is placeables. Now I do need to apologize because I did not put a lot of work into the placeables at this point, right? So a lot of these things I learn as I go, right? As I'm working on a map and I'm kind of, just goofing around. That's how I learn, like, to get in depth with things. And I can goof around for 10, 15 minutes here and get the gist of how it works, which probably most of us have done by now. And when it comes to placeables, that's all I've really done so far. But the same as we did with the fields, right? Working with the farm fields, we do the same thing here with placeables. So it did make things a lot easier in some respects. So if we go over to map, go down to placeables, we got our placeable toolkit, right? So just the same way we have the farm field toolkit. All right. Now with create placeable, one thing that I know is you want to make sure first and foremost here, right, for this map placeables config. Now, a lot of times this is pointing at your base game. Make sure you change that, or you may end up changing your base game files, right? So you got to make sure that this is on something different. All right. So when we get over to make sure we pick the proper placeables here. So get over to documents. Let's get into, really need to make a shortcut for this. FS25. We'll get into mods and the Palmer map, config, and then just pick your placeables like so. All right. So now every change that it needs to write to your placeables file, it's going to write it to the right place, to the correct place, instead of overwriting any of your base game files, because you really don't want to do that. That's no bueno. That's not anything we want to do. All right, now the difference between reference and imported, I didn't actually see that it imported anything. Like I said, this is something that I really need to get in depth with. At this point, probably 50% of you guys at least know more about this than I do at this point in time. All right, now that's what I would expect to see. Like normal, like a reference placeable is just something that it's still everything sits on the base game side, and you're just referencing that placeable and you're pulling all that information in from the base game. Create placeable imported, I would think that you're importing a lot of those files locally into your project. But like I said, I have not had a chance to really play around with that. Now, I can tell you, I mean, it makes it super easy, right? So if we go into, if we pick one of our placeables from base game, all right, let's go into 25, let's go into data and placeables. All right, and we'll just pick something, like say from the map US, like let's say the carpenter. All right. And it's just as easy as picking the XML file, right? And bam, there we go. Right. So it slapped that bad boy down for us. Super. I mean, it couldn't get any easier, right? And certainly no easier than that. And what's nice about this is if we go over to our placeables XML, it is writing that information to the XML for us. All right. So that's super nice. Now, the one thing that was not struggling with, but I questioned on my own. Okay, let's get into my map project here. Is if I go into my config, right? So when I go into my placeables, oh boy, there is a lot going on in that placeables file. All right. All of these this is still mostly my base game. This is the base game map is what this placeable refers to. But anyhow, you can see how it looks now. You got, your is pre-placed equals true. You got a unique ID. And then bought with farmland, you know what I mean? All your normal options that you have, your configurations, right? As far as placeables go, you would expect to see here. Now, this is the way that it would write it when it writes it to the file itself. Now, let's say you have your own placeable. It's something that you created and you're hosting locally. That's kind of where I ran into a bit of an issue, right? So let's get back into my map project here. And you guys probably already figured out the workaround to this. Like I said, I just haven't had that much time to play with it. So I do apologize that I can't answer all of your questions with this. But let's say I go to create placeable imported, and now I just go locally into a project, right? So if I go into documents, let me see, is any of these, trying to see if any of these are like a local. Yeah, here we go. Let's go to Palmer, go into map, import. No, I thought maybe I was hoping I had a local placeable. I did in one of my projects. But anyhow, what the problem that I was running into is if I had a placeable within my project itself, I couldn't. I not that I couldn't. Yeah, I guess I couldn't. It wasn't working for me when I tried to import it this way, right? Using the toolkit. What I think might work now, like I said, I didn't verify this. Is the old way, right? When you put your placeable down, you import it like the drag and drop. You stick it on your map. Now I'm not gonna. I don't have an example here of what the old way is right off the bat. I mean, I guess I do if I dig one up. Uh, but you know what I mean by the old way, where you have the placeable, you have a unique ID again, or a map bound ID you used to have. You might want to make some changes. Instead of map bound ID, you can change it to a unique ID. But then you would put your coordinates, right? So your X, Y, and Z values, and then your rotation values. And then that's the old way of doing it. Now, I did experiment with it really, really quickly. And when I ran the map, it did say that it was missing two store items. Now, I only had two things in my placeable file at that time. One of them was this way, the pre placed way, right, that I did with the toolkit. And the other one was the standard way, the old way of doing it. So I'm wanting to say that it did recognize it, and it is looking to place it, but it couldn't find the store item. But again, that's something that I'm going to have to experiment with a little bit further. I'm really slacking as far as working with the placeables. All right, I will get to this. Like I said, I've been busy with the holidays, but kind of busy with a few other things too. All right, and I just haven't got into this. A lot of this, like I said, to get into the nitty gritty, I the most of it, the meat of it, I get into when I'm working on projects, right? That's when you're going to learn the most. All right. So I'll leave you guys. I'm going to leave the placeables thing right there. Cause like I said, I didn't get too far into that and I don't want you guys to, be looking to me for some good information when all I have is just a bunch of guesses and speculation. All right. So outside of that, I'll show you one other thing that is on the agenda. So, like I said, this was my new map, Palmer, right? So, I still think most definitely this is going to be released for FS22 because the bulk of the work has been done there. It is pretty darn close to being done, and there's no sense abandoning that now just to work on a conversion that I have a ton of work to put into. But this is a possibility, right? That I could be releasing it in 25, maybe. Um, at this point, I kind of think I would like to just jump into a new project, right? Because there's some things that may or may not work out so well with the conversion, but again, I will figure that out somewhere down the road. All right, so that's something I'm looking to finish at some point, right? Get the FS25 part of it done, or 22 part of it done, and then later on, I will worry about what I want to do with 25. All right, so something else that I have on the back burner right now, you can see the title here is an FS25 Riverbend 4 kilometers. Not sure how you guys feel about this. This is my redemption. This is my redemption for Elm Creek extension. So I am going to give this another shot, I think. At least that's where I'm at right now. And the reason that I decided to do this is with an extension, right? So you already have a 2 kilometer map. With the extension, I'm just extending it by another, 2 kilometers, right? So I'm just doubling the size of the map. So half of the map is literally done for me. All right. So you can see looking around here, this is the normal, river bend that we would expect to see. But if we back out, back out, back out, back out, now you will have all that extra area, right? That same thing as the Elm Creek extension, right? Except this time it's not going to have a bunch of bugs and broken parts of the map. It will actually look good and work just as well. At least that's my plan so far. All right. So I don't know. Let me know how you feel about this. And Elm, or not an Elm Creek, basically it's a Riverbend extension. Not sure that's what I'll call it, but yeah, you will have a 4 kilometer Riverbend that you will be able to play with as soon as I'm done with this. And like I said, I decided to go this route first only because half the map is already done. It should not take me nearly as long to finish an extension than it would, right, to make the entire 4 kilometer map from scratch, right? So you can see I'm already mostly done, right? I'm literally halfway done with this map, and I just started yesterday, so that really works out nice. All right, and once I get decently far with this map, or maybe even close to release, I will probably release a video detailing exactly how I do this, right? I will let you guys in on the big secret, even though there is absolutely nothing secret about it. Like I said, you just need to kind of use your noodle and think outside the box, and you will figure out exactly how this is done. No problemo, right? Everything is exactly where it needs to be. The fields all line up, right? So the grass is where the grass needs to be. Roads all line up. There's nothing misaligned. Everything is absolutely perfect and will work as advertised. The only thing I ran into with this is one of my density maps, right, for the foliage. You can see what happened here. Not sure why, right? It just kind of and it converted. I think that actually was the problem. I think with the GRLE converter, right, doing the conversion over to a PMG or PNG, I think I'm losing some information there. Maybe that's the only thing I can think of, because I did check the PNG once I converted it over to an image file. And I mean, it looked okay. Didn't look like I lost anything. And I did try the conversion several times, because don't forget, I'm enlarging this, right? So, well, not enlarging it. Actually, I'm not. I'm keeping it the same, kinda. Like for example, if the density map was a 2048, but now my map size is twice as big. It's a 4096. Well, now my density map also needs to be a 4096, but I need to retain the 2048 information, if that makes any sense. Right? So it's this is where you need to think outside the box. But anyhow, technically the size did change and also did not change, if that makes any sense. And I will explain that all to you when I do when I do the tutorial on how to enlarge maps, so how to properly enlarge maps. All right. So yeah, I don't everything else, everything turned out perfectly. Everything is placed the way, exactly where it needs to be placed. All the ground markings are exactly where they need to be. It's just this density map, just the foliage density, for whatever reason. Maybe I'll give it one or two more goes just to see if I can find out what is going on there. I don't know. But you can see, and it's a definite pattern. You can see the step pattern here, right? Where it just sort of lost some of the information. It's got the majority of it, right? If I head inward in towards town, everything else, right, showed up and it's right. It's exact. So I know it's correct because everything is exactly where it should be. Right now, maybe it looks like, oh no, even that's good. All right. Yeah, so everything is exactly where it should be. If it wasn't, you would see grass in places that you don't expect to see it. You'd see it over top of parking lots and, stuff like that. But literally everything is where it should be, except for, you know, I get so far outside of it and then, like, bam, stops right there, which is odd. I don't know why. It should extend further out. Only, and I'm missing this much of it. No, it's not a huge deal to come back and see. This is where I don't get, because you can see the pattern here, right? Where it just sort of cut itself off. And this isn't the first enlargement that I've done, so this is not like a common problem. But I still have a pretty good chunk of land that I would have to fill in by hand. Again, not a huge deal, easily done, right? I just limit the texture, and that should go fairly smoothly. I don't know why it's doing that. It would be a lot easier, obviously, if this was already done and I don't have to come back and fill that in. Less work for me to do. All right, I will figure that out. That's a me problem right there, and I will figure that out. I have a couple things I want to figure out on this map to begin with. With some of the edges, I'm not quite sure with this perimeter here if it's going to stay exactly there. It makes a difference whether I raise that up more or lower it more on how the ground surface is going to look on the perimeter of the map. Kind of hard to explain right now, but trust me, it does make a difference. But again, this is probably going to be my next project. Let me know how you feel about that. You can hit me up in the comments. If there is anything that you guys want to know, like I said, I apologize that I'm kind of slacking on the placeable thing. Eh, that's my life story. But again, definitely take advantage of the decal thing. Super, super nice. But let me know if there's anything that you want to know or tutorials that you want to see as we move forward. I will try to plan accordingly and maybe bump some of those things towards the front of the list. Again, not it's there's big changes this time around, but it's nothing game breaking for us, right? So it's we don't have to readjust massively, right? So your decal thing is a little bit different, but you can still do them the old way if you want, right? You can still put your roads down the old way. Nobody's stopping you from doing that. So that's strictly by choice of whether or not you want to use the new decal system. So take advantage of that. Placeables obviously is a little bit different, but it shouldn't take much to get our heads around that. And then the fields are a little bit different. Now, I did hear rumor of, I don't want to say rumor, but as far as the fields and the farmlands go, I heard rumor that each field, you can only have one field per farmland. And I would say, nah, rubbish. That's definitely not true. It's never been done that way before, and it doesn't make much sense to do it that way now. But looking at the base game maps, the evidence does back it up. All right. But like I said, I'm not saying one way or the other whether or not that is true. But it's something I need to look into a bit further just to see if that is in fact true, the way that they're doing things now. All right. But anyhow, what else do I have for you guys? I think that may be it for now. All right. So let me know how you feel about a 4K Riverbend Springs. I said, when I do the tutorial, I will pick one of the other maps. I'll pick either Sri Lanka or I'll pick the Asian map, and we will extend that. And by the time we're done, you'll know exactly how to do it. And then you can extend either one of your own maps or whatever. Pick a base game map. Whatever you decide to do, you will be good to go. I promise. So again, let me know in the comments what kind of tutorials you're looking for, and I will plan accordingly. And that is it. That is my update around the 1.3, the patch 1.3, and everything else. What I'm working at, what I'm working on, where I'm at, and where I plan to go with things. So I'm going to leave it right there. With that being said, I'm Bauer Brown, and I will see you on the next one.